They say 50 is the new 40. And maybe for me, it was closer to 39. People always told me I didn't look my age: smooth skin, high cheekbones, eyes that still had mischief in them when the light hit right. I didn't feel old. Not really. But there was a quietness to my life. A kind of stillness that stretched across the years like fog across a lake. My name's Rachel. Married for 27 years. 3 grown children. A husband who still kissed my forehead every night, but hadn't kissed me like he wanted to in a very, very long time. We had comfort. A shared history. Vacations. Joint savings. Matching robes. But we hadn't made love in over 9 months. I stopped counting after the 8th. I don't think he noticed. Or if he did, he didn't say anything. Maybe we were both pretending. Pretending that routine was the same as connection. That having dinner together every night counted as intimacy. That sleeping side by side, scrolling through our phones, was still enough. I didn't cheat because I was bored. Or angry. Or reckless. I cheated because I forgot what it felt like to be seen. It started at the gym. A new trainer. Young, too young, really. Tall, with a runner's build and a laugh that could have belonged to someone in a movie. His name was Luca. He called me ma'am the first time. I laughed and said, "Don't do that, it makes me feel like I'm your high school principal." After that, he called me Rachel. Only Rachel. I didn't flirt. At least, not at first. I wore loose shirts. Simple leggings. I barely made eye contact. But he was warm. Attentive. Not just about posture and breathing, but the way he looked at me when I spoke, like he actually heard me. Like nothing I said was small. Once, after a session, I said something silly about how my joints weren't keeping up with the music playing through the gym speakers. He smiled and said, "Your body doesn't look like it's 50. Honestly, it moves better than half the 20-year-olds I train." I laughed it off. But that compliment stayed with me. It hummed under my skin for days. And then came the moment. The shift. A brush of his hand on my lower back that lingered just a second too long. The way he looked at me in the mirror as I adjusted my hair. The way I looked back. I went home that night and stared at myself. Really stared. The lines near my eyes. The curve of my waist. The fading scar from my 3rd C-section. And somehow, I still felt beautiful. No. I felt alive. And I hadn't felt that in years. That was the beginning. Of something I never planned. Never even imagined myself capable of. But desire doesn't ask permission. It just shows up. Smiling, sweaty, 25. And calling you by your name. The next few weeks passed in slow, deliberate tension. I kept showing up at the gym twice a week, same time, same leggings, same bottle of water, like I wasn't secretly unraveling from the inside. Luca was always there, waiting for me. Cheerful. Focused. But something in the way he looked at me had changed. Or maybe, something in the way I looked at him had. He adjusted my posture during squats, his hands low on my hips. Held my wrists in the air during planks, fingers grazing my skin. Tucked a loose strand of hair behind my ear one morning when I was flushed and laughing too hard from some half-sarcastic joke he'd made about my form. I could feel the shift every time he stood too close. When he leaned in to correct me, and my breath caught in my throat. There was a moment, after a set of deep stretches, when I came up slowly from the mat, and our eyes met in the mirror. He didn't smile. He just watched me. Quiet. Direct. Unapologetic. "Do you always hold your breath?" he asked one day, catching me mid-rep. "I guess," I replied. "Habit." He stepped closer. I felt the heat of his body before I saw him. "Don't. You'll pass out on me. Inhale when you open. Exhale when you close." There was something about the way he said it. Inhale when you open. Exhale when you close. It wasn't about breathing anymore. And we both knew it. I started dreaming about him. Not explicitly. Not even romantically. Just moments. His hand brushing my back. His voice low in my ear. The smell of eucalyptus and sweat when he leaned over me. It was ridiculous. I was 50. He was 25. This wasn't a movie. This wasn't supposed to happen. But desire doesn't care about math. It cares about presence. And Luca had become dangerously present. At home, my husband noticed I was smiling more. Sleeping better. Wearing mascara again. He complimented me twice in 1 week, for the first time in maybe 3 months. I told him it was the exercise. That I felt healthier. And in a way, I wasn't lying. But it wasn't the lunges or the dumbbells. It was the slow return of sensation. Of being watched. Wanted. One morning, after our session, Luca handed me a towel. His hand touched mine, just briefly. But enough to send something sharp and electric through me. He looked at me for a second too long. And then he said, "You know, I train a lot of people, but with you, it's different." I swallowed. "How?" He smiled. That same quiet, confident smile. "You listen to your body. Most people fight it." I didn't answer. Because I was suddenly aware of how much I'd stopped fighting mine. That night, in the shower, I stood under the hot water until my skin turned pink. And I thought of his hands. Not touching me. Not yet. But close. So close. And my body ached, not from the workout. From waiting. It was raining the day I crossed the line. Not with my body. But with my intent. I almost didn't go to the gym. The storm made everything feel heavy and slow. But I showed up anyway, soaked from the parking lot, hair clinging to my cheekbones, leggings damp from the knees down. Luca looked up as I walked in and grinned. "You came through all that just for me?" It was a joke. But it didn't feel like one. The gym was quiet, nearly empty. Only 2 other people in the back, lost in their headphones and machines. He gestured to the stretching area. "Let's take it light today." I nodded. I sat. He knelt beside me. And then, something shifted. He wasn't just guiding me through movement. He was watching me move. Slow, intentional stretches. His hand gently placed on the curve of my calf. The inside of my thigh. Holding it. Guiding it. My breath slowed. Not from exertion. But from the tension. At one point, he sat behind me. I was on the floor, knees bent, arms extended over my head. "Relax your shoulders," he murmured. I did. His hands slid over them. Firm. Steady. Not invasive. But not neutral, either. He leaned forward, his chest close to my back, his voice low. "You hold tension here. Right beneath your shoulder blades." His thumbs pressed into the muscle, and I exhaled, too fast. I felt it, the shift in my body. Not resistance. But surrender. I tilted my head back slightly, barely. And for a breathless second, our faces were so close. He didn't move. Neither did I. It was the most erotic moment of my adult life. Not sex. Not touch. But the unbearable pause between almost and if only. When I stood, my legs trembled slightly. I hoped he didn't notice. But he did. He reached out, steadied me with one hand on my waist. Held my gaze. And said, with a straight face, "You're stronger than you think." I didn't answer. I couldn't. In the locker room, I sat on the bench with my towel in my lap, shaking. Not with fear. But with adrenaline. Like I'd just jumped off something high and landed on my feet. I didn't go home right away. I drove around for nearly an hour. Window cracked, rain sliding down my arm. When I finally stepped through the front door, my husband was in the kitchen. He smiled. "Hey, there she is. How was it?" I blinked. Swallowed. "Good," I said softly. "We stretched a lot today." He nodded. "Well, whatever it is, keep doing it. You look incredible lately." I kissed him on the cheek. Smiled. And felt like I was watching someone else wear my face. Because I wasn't his anymore. Not fully. Part of me was still kneeling on that mat. Eyes closed. Back arched. Held in place by the quiet hands of a man half my age. I waited 3 days. 3 days of pretending. Of folding laundry. Answering emails. Of sleeping beside a man who never noticed how still I'd become. 3 days of replaying Luca's hands on my back. His breath behind my ear. The way I didn't pull away. And then I did it. I messaged him. Just one line. "Do you ever train clients off-site?" It was vague enough to be harmless. Suggestive enough to be understood. His reply came 2 minutes later. "Depends on the client." And then. "What did you have in mind?" I stared at the screen for a long time before answering. Then, slowly, deliberately, I typed. "Privacy. No distractions. Just you and me." It felt like crossing into another life. But I pressed send. There was no turning back. We agreed on Sunday. Late afternoon. I told my husband I had a spa appointment, deep tissue, long wait list, booked weeks ago. He nodded, kissed my forehead, and asked if I wanted him to start dinner. I wanted to scream. But I just smiled and said, "No, it's okay. I'll grab something after." Luca's apartment was exactly what I imagined. Minimalist. Clean. Large windows. Hardwood floors. A pull-up bar in the doorway. A yoga mat rolled up in the corner. No photos. No clutter. Just space. And silence. When I stepped inside, he looked me over, not in surprise. Like he'd always known I'd come. He didn't ask why I was there. Didn't offer water. Didn't pretend. He just said, "You look tense." I let out a breath. You have no idea. There was no small talk. No warm-up set. Just us. Standing a few feet apart. And then closer. And closer. He reached up. Tucked my hair behind my ear, again, like he'd done that first day. I tilted my face up to him, waiting. He didn't kiss me. He just whispered. "Are you sure?" And for the first time in years, I didn't hesitate. I nodded. "I want this." The words weren't reckless. They were precise. Chosen. They didn't mean I was falling in love. They meant I was done pretending I didn't miss being wanted. Not as a wife. Not as a mother. Not as someone with bills and responsibilities. Just as a woman. He stepped back. Slowly. Gave me space, but not distance. "Stretch first," he said with a sly smile. "Then we'll see where your body takes you." It was a game now. And I wasn't just playing. I was leading. I toed off my shoes. Dropped my sweater. Rolled my neck. And when I reached down to touch my toes, I knew. Without looking. That his eyes were on every inch of me. There's a moment before it happens. Before the touch becomes intention. Before the air shifts from suggestive to irreversible. It's quiet. Almost sacred. And then it's gone. He stood behind me while I stretched. Not touching. Not speaking. Just waiting. I felt the warmth of him at my back, the sound of his breath syncing with mine. I stayed bent forward longer than I needed to, feeling the tightness in my legs, and the tension everywhere else. When I finally rose, his hand brushed my arm. Not an accident. He stepped closer. His fingers traced the line of my spine, from the base of my neck to the small of my back. I didn't stop him. I turned. Faced him. Let him see everything in my eyes, the yes, the now, the don't make me ask. The kiss was slow. Surprisingly gentle. But charged, like touching a live wire, knowing you're about to be burned. His hands found my waist. Mine slid up his chest, into his hair. When he lifted me, effortlessly, like I weighed nothing, and set me on the edge of the low table by the window, I didn't gasp. I opened my legs. Silently. Willingly. He didn't ask for permission again. Because by then, I'd already given it, in every look, every breath, every time I came back for more. His mouth traced the side of my neck. His hands gripped my thighs, my hips, my ribcage, exploring me like he was learning a language he couldn't wait to speak fluently. I pulled my top over my head. No drama. No seduction. Just removal. Of the last layer between who I was, and what I was about to become. It wasn't slow. It wasn't sweet. It was deep. Raw. My body moved like it remembered something I hadn't felt in decades. Something unapologetic. There was no conversation. Only sound. My breath. His voice. Our rhythm. And when he took me, fully, completely, I didn't close my eyes. I looked right at him. Like I wanted to remember this moment forever. Like I needed to. We didn't say anything afterward. He brought me water. I sat on the edge of the couch, redressing in silence, my pulse still fluttering beneath my skin. He didn't ask if I was okay. He didn't need to. I wasn't fragile. I was full. Exhausted. Awake. On the drive home, I turned off the music. The world felt quieter. My body still humming, my lips swollen, my thighs sore. At one stoplight, I looked at my reflection in the rearview mirror. My cheeks were flushed. Hair tangled. Eyes darker than I remembered. I didn't recognize myself. And I didn't care. When I stepped through the front door, the smell of dinner was already in the air. He was at the stove. My husband. He turned, smiled. "You're glowing," he said, wiping his hands on a towel. "How was the spa?" I kissed him on the cheek. "I feel brand new," I whispered. I thought I'd feel guilt. I expected it, actually. Waited for it like a headache I knew was coming. But the next morning, I woke up, calm. No panic. No disgust. Just a strange stillness. Like I'd finally scratched an itch I pretended wasn't there. My husband stirred beside me in bed. He was snoring softly, one hand draped across my waist. Not intimately, just, out of habit. And for a brief, breathless second, I wondered. Would he know? Would he smell another man's skin on me? See the difference in my eyes? Notice how I moved like I'd just been reminded what it meant to be touched? But he didn't. He rolled over and mumbled, "Coffee?" I smiled. Already slipping back into the role. Coming right up. I cleaned everything. My clothes. My hair. Deleted the texts. Erased the map history. Cleared the logins on my burner email. Blocked Luca. Not out of spite. Out of necessity. This wasn't going to be a thing. It wasn't the beginning of something new. It was a moment. One flame. One burn. One night where I let myself remember who I used to be, before I became someone's wife and someone's mother and someone's afterthought. I didn't plan to tell anyone. Not my sister. Not my therapist. Not even my reflection. It was a private rebellion. Executed clean. Buried deep. The best kind of affair. And at home, nothing changed. I still cooked dinner. Still laughed at his jokes. Still made love once every few weeks out of duty, pretending I didn't notice the difference, in weight, in heat, in want. He never asked where I'd really been that Sunday. Never questioned why I started humming while folding laundry. Never noticed that I wore my hair down more often. Because men like him don't imagine women like me cheating. Not after 27 years. Not after 3 kids and 2 mortgages. He thought I'd aged into loyalty. But really, I just aged into silence. Sometimes, I'd lie in bed and think of Luca's hands. Not sexually. Just honestly. How they held me with no history. No expectation. No us. Just me. That was the real betrayal. Not the sex. But the fact that, for the first time in years, I felt like a whole woman. Instead of someone's familiar shadow. It's been a year. 12 quiet, ordinary, undramatic months. We've celebrated our 28th anniversary. Went to Napa for a long weekend. Hosted Thanksgiving. Repainted the living room. From the outside, we look good. Stable. Content. And maybe we are. In a way. He still holds my hand when we cross the street. Still tells people I haven't aged a day. Still falls asleep before me, every single night, like nothing in the world could ever go wrong. And I let him. Because nothing did go wrong. He never found out. There were no texts left behind. No strange numbers. No receipts. No change in routine. I kept the lie tucked in the soft folds of silence. Where it could never be questioned. Because it never made a sound. But I know. And that's enough. Sometimes, I look at him while he reads the paper. Muttering about politics and the rising price of coffee beans. And I wonder. If he met me today, would he still recognize me? Not my face. Not my voice. But the version of me that stood barefoot in a stranger's apartment. And let herself be undone. Not out of love. Not out of rebellion. But out of hunger. That woman? She still lives in me. Quietly. Deeply. Coiled just beneath the smile I wear when he kisses my temple. She's the version he'll never meet. And I don't think I want him to. Because to know her is to know what I'm capable of. And I don't want to see that knowledge in his eyes. I still love him. In the way long marriages allow. Warm. Familiar. Woven into the bone. But I also know this. Loyalty and honesty are not the same thing. And some truths are too heavy to speak aloud. When no one is strong enough to catch them. So I keep the secret. I keep her. The woman who didn't hesitate. Who said yes. Who opened her legs and closed the door behind her. Who moaned against a younger man's mouth and came home glowing with the lie of spa steam on her skin. She sleeps inside me. And some nights, when he turns away in bed. And the house is dark and still. I let her breathe.